here is a petition signed by everybody that lives in this neighborhood.
All right.
Jeff Schluss, 712 Park Street. The reason of opposing Mill Street would affect us in our neighborhood is the general fact of both times we've had these big storms and even storms prior to this. Mill Street was the only one opened up. All the trucks, the truckers and the linemen, the tree crews, all that were parked up here in one area. You couldn't get through there. Mr. Sessions fixed a piece of our street prior to the storm, but it has weaseled its way to a big hole in the ground, pretty much, a big canal going through there. So even right now, you can't get through there unless you have a big truck. And that's pretty much where we're at. I mean, there's none of us, I mean, this figure back there has been driving on that road for 71 years. 71 years. There's street signs on there, stop signs on both ends. I mean, it's been a street. He's sitting there, and how long has the city known that we would drive on private property? You know, I mean, for them to allow that, I mean, why not they put the street there? You know, I mean, like it's supposed to be there. You know, I mean, this poor man back here is having to pay $1,500 for a sewer add-on. I mean, because the city didn't do that for him. I mean, it's the things that the city's supposed to do, and they're not doing, but we're supposed to pay for it. Or we're taking the repercussions of it. I mean, hold the city to the fire for once. Put the street there. I mean, look at all the runoff that we've got now. You're going to add all these houses there, just like the mayor said. You're going to add all these houses. Where's all this water going to go? It's still flooded over there right now. There ain't nobody cleaned Park Street at one time, one storm, but me. Every single time. I do. Can't get through no other way. Where we going to go? One way in, one way out. When it's blocked off, then what's going to happen? We're just going to be stuck there. Ain't nobody going to run around there to fix it. Oh, we got 8 people over here complaining. But this whole city's messed up, man. We're going to wait years and years and years before we start fixing something. Now we're going to start fixing something. Look how long that everybody has known that this town has been this way. But we're going to fix something now. We're going to fix something now. Well, that's great, man. That's great. Let's do it. I'm ready. Ready to see it. Can't wait.
All right, so public hearing is still open as long as it pertains to final reading of ordinance 1518.
I have a question for Mr.
Sure.
Sorry for mispronouncing your name. Did you say that there are stop signs, that there are road signs?
Yes, ma'am, at both ends.
At both
With the
ends?
street name.
With the
It's
street?
been there for, I know, 40 years. That I've been there, 40 years. Miss Tinker's been there over 70 years. It goes straight to her house.
And so it's being used as a...
Every day it's being used.
Used as a... Okay, that's what it is.
If it pertains, yes ma'am, as long as it pertains.
And you know, there's a lot of people that own property on one side of the street and own property on the other side of the street. Everybody wish they could shut the street down and just have more property to build more homes. If we've got all this money, and just for one other thing, you know, the man comes to my house, for one. He comes to my house. Mr. Sessions sent him to my house. I asked Mr. Sessions to send him to my house. He sends him to my house. He comes to my door. Hey, you know, I want to introduce myself. Hey, I'm a nice guy in the neighborhood, but he ain't gonna live in the neighborhood. He ain't living there. He tells me the fire marshal told him that he can take everything and pile it up on the property and burn it all. I said, the fire marshal told you this. Yeah, the fire marshal told me this. I said, okay. So I wait on the man to leave, but he also told me, he said, if you try to stop me, you're going to be like a sand spur on my ankle. Which that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm a pretty good sand spur. You know, and you tell the man that, oh, I'm going to pile all this stuff up, I'm going to burn it. So I picked the phone up after the man leaves. There's no burn permit in the city of Live Oak. The man tells me, the fire marshal tells me, yes, he did. So I called down there. The fire marshal, he didn't answer the phone. Somebody else did. I said, well, can somebody ask the fire marshal, are we allowed to burn in the city limits? The man said, no. If he starts burning that stuff over in the city limits, dial 911. But the man gonna stand there and tell me to my face 5 minutes ago that the fire marshal told me he could burn all this stuff. I mean, I don't know what to do now. But that's the kind of people that we're dealing with. Okay, I'm ready.
So I'm listening to what he says, and I think about how when I own some property, if the city wants it, they can come take it with eminent domain. Or if I pay the taxes on some property long enough, it's mine. So I'm trying to figure out, it's had a street name for 40 years. 70 years. People have been driving on it like a public road for 70 years. I'm trying to understand the legality of the person who owns it. Who's been paying the taxes if it's private property? Has he been paying it, or has the city been paying it? But what you may have, what may be a legal issue for him and the city, for the Sandysboro man here, is 71 years it's been a city road. Keep saying that. 71 years it's had street signs. Who went and put city street signs up there if it was private property? Because you can't come on my mother's driveway and put a city street name. You just can't. So the city, somebody went and put street names, which means it's platted on a map with street names. If I put it in my wave, it's going to take me to that address. And Miss Madam Queen back here has been driving on it for 71 years, and I just want to say to the man, he may be a Sandysboro, but if the 71-year driving lady goes to court about driving on your land for 71 years, there may be a problem. So maybe you all can work something out, because I just can't understand how the city, the fire department, the fire marshal, or anyone is going to have a heavy legal land to stand on when they name the street, let them drive on the street, and somebody from the city went out there and put street names on their stuff. And stop signs.
Mr. Bradford and then Mr. Berman, and anybody else that's already not spoken.
Good evening. How are you? So, first thing I'd like to address is just because someone's been, my name's Jeff Bradford, by the way.
Sir, yes.
And the first thing I'd like to address is just because someone's been doing something for a long time doesn't make it right or legal. The road where it currently is Mill Street is not on the city's right of way. It's on our private property. It's been being used. We've cleared the property. We maintain the property. It's our intent to build houses on the property. The section of Park Street that I did speak to Mr. Shulo. I went to his house and I spoke to him. I didn't tell him that the fire marshal told me I was allowed to burn. I asked him if he had any problems with me burning there, because we're gonna dispose of it. So we have not burned anything on the property. He also made numerous complaints that we had a new well put in, which wasn't. We had the well repaired. We've cleaned up the property. We've removed the dilapidated mobile homes that were on the property. We started clearing. Park Street, we own both sides of the property on numerous occasions. It doesn't lead to anywhere. It deadheads between the property. That's the portion that we're asking to close. There are other means of egress and ingress to their home on Park Street through Waterman, via Park and Cooper. The issue that was brought up about flooding in the area, there's no flooding due to the elevations of those properties. It doesn't even retain water. We're developing and building houses in the area. It's much needed. We're getting rid of blight and slum, and there were several dilapidated sheds on the building that it appeared that people were cooking meth in. There were numerous chemicals used to manufacture methamphetamines in those buildings. We disposed of them properly. We removed the buildings and we've improved the site, and we're working forward on developing a site plan to develop the needed housing that we have in the city of Livewood. Recently, during an economic council that they held at Camp Weed, they did a housing study for Suwannee County, and they said that right now we're 580 rentals short for Suwannee County, and we'd still have a surplus of people that would still need rental houses. If we continue at the rate that we're going at right now with permits in Suwannee County and Livewood, In 5 years, we'll be 1,100 houses short of what we need for the anticipated population growth in Swanee County. We can control the areas where we grow and develop, and like Mr. Sessions said, we can share that burden instead of the same 500 taxpayers in the city of Live Oak, and we can grow our city. We can add amenities, utilities, services such as police and fire, and grow, or we can keep our head in the sand. And look, the people are here. They're living in sheds. They're piled up. They're living multiple families and overburdening the rentals that we have that are available. So again, it's our intent to develop and build the property, and we appreciate the support and the help that everyone in the city provides in everything during the storm that you all have done.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, David Berman speaking. George Curtis factually answered the cause and effect and legalities of being able to close the road, and that's our position. I'm not going to explain the stuff, respond to stuff that this other person brought up. It's just not worth it. The petition, I'd love to see that, because since we own all the property around it, we were never brought the petition or shown the petition to even say what it was for or about or participate in it. We're not. Other than that, like I said, Jeff summed it up. We've done the right thing. We removed blight. We're going to continue. And they'll get a much better looking place. That'll be paying real estate taxes and hooking up utilities and keeping their properties clean, free of vagrants and whatever else goes up there. Thank you.
How many units are you talking about? How many houses? No.
Right now, there's roughly, on the railroad portion, between 18 and 22 houses.
18 and 22. And
It's
that
not for
is,
certain. Once the civil engineer works with the surveyor for platting the lot, they'll have an exact amount. For example, there's a couple of large live oak trees that cannot be moved. Those lots may be double lots. So some people may have a larger lot where the actual live oak tree is on the lot. So there's going to be some work with the civil engineer to survey on that stuff.
okay. And so that piece of property that you're talking about, that you're asking for them to close, how many units could be built on that?
Until the civil engineer comes up with these calculations, we don't know that. Between 2 and 4.
Not the property for the road closure. The property for the road closure doesn't affect the number of houses that we would be able to do significantly enough because of the size of the property. It's not a significant enough piece of property to add or subtract. It just allows flexibility to build on the volume of land that we have, and ultimately that would be on a civil engineer. In other words, this isn't like this road will produce, the area that this road closure is will produce 4 houses in that area. It just allows for the flexibility of the property lines to move to keep the historic values that we have on the property. And that's ultimately up to a civil engineer to do a platting for a surveyor and a civil engineer to come up with a plan for the development of the land. Is that clear? Does that kind of clear that a little bit?
Yeah.
Is this the same property that they released the $400,000 worth of liens on? No.
Are these the buyers of some of those tax lien?
So right now, we're getting kind of a little bit off of topic, and then maybe just a lot off topic. So let's stick to the actual ordinance itself. We've heard all the parties involved, heard what you had to say. I would like to have Mr. Curtis come if you'll come to the podium, please. And just the facts, Mr. Curtis, I'd like to make sure that we all are clear on the facts. The property owners of the road that has been in question is Mill Street, that's correct, Mill?
Yeah, if you look at the ordinance,
Right.
there's
And
actually
the
a map on
property
the
owners
ordinance.
are whom?
Jeff,
Right, I just want to make sure we're all.
Dana Berman and under
Azalea 15.
Azalea 15
Right.
is there.
However, the road has been used for X amount of years, and there in fact were stop signs and things like that on it. We were
This
just
was
allowing.
part of the Croft estate, going back to when Swanee Pack was operating as a slaughterhouse.
Gotcha.
which dates back to the 20s.
Okay.
And the new owners, Dana Berman, under the company name, came and did a survey, and the property had never been surveyed before. We had no records as to exactly what a survey would demonstrate. They did a survey, brought it in, and when you compare the plat page from 100 years ago, which is just a sketch,
Right.
and you compare the survey, and then you go out there and see where the survey flags are, it's evident that the city never, and none of this has been improved. There's no asphalt, or, you know, there's no improvements to any of these streets in this neighborhood. You know, by today's standards, when somebody creates a subdivision, they have to pave all the streets
Right.
to DOT standards. So what you have is a dirt path that's been a cut through historically, and then you have a platted right-of-way 30 feet over from the cut through that is just grass, because it was never paved or anything
All right.
otherwise.
All right, thank you. All right, I think at this time we're going to shut down the public hearing section of it.
Well, I mean, I got one more thing.
Well, we're closing down. I think we've heard. I mean, we know where you stand.
Well, I mean, my thing is they know who owns this property. It's over 6 foot high. I've even called in on it several times. But he does all this work, so the city doesn't put the code enforcement on them because they're privileged. I guess Larry here thinks that,
All right, Mr. Blue,
they're
we
beyond.
gotta stop. We gotta
Well, I
stop
mean,
that. We
why-
gotta
why
stop.
are they
I mean, but throwing accusations is not gonna further your
Hey, I've called
position.
into him, I've called into JL,
I'm
I've called
asking you,
in. I
please,
mean, and
just as a
nothing has been
favor
done.
to me. Yes, sir, I understand you're frustrated. I get it, I understand, yes,
I
sir.
agree, we shouldn't get
I
taxed
understand.
into
All right, public hearing is concluded at this time. You've heard the public hearing, you've heard from staff, you've heard the final reading. What would be the pleasure of the council?
I'll offer the motion, 1518.
All right, so we got a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Now we have any further discussion from the council? No further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, so measure passes 3-2.
This is nice.
All right, moving on now to item J. This is going to be a discussion with possible council action discontinuing the fluoride to the city of Live Oak. Potable water, if I could have Mr. Vince Smith, Ms. Pruitt, Ms. Palmisano, and Mr. Klepper line up at the podium so we can hear from each of you on this matter. You'll each have 3 minutes. And we can go in that order. So I read those off just as you signed up. So if Mr. Smith would go first, followed by Ms. Pruitt, then Ms. Palmisano, and Ms. Klepper. Toothpaste, come my way. Thank you.
Look at that,
Yeah, we have a petition on this, go through everything.
We're ready.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Smith, thank you.
Vince Smith, 9194, 132nd Terrace. I think you all are aware, I know JL is, about the Biden administration is pumping $3 million into replacing.
Stop being aggressive.
Oh, yeah. Biden administration, are we up next?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Biden administration is pumping $3 billion into lead pipe removal. That's the service lines that go from the main in the street to either the house or to the water meter in the front. And we're doing significant work on that, which is wonderful. getting the lead, because lead is not good for humans. It accumulates in the brain. It causes behavioral as well as microbial changes. And it is particularly offensive to children that are developing and affecting their brains and their behaviors. There's a whole range of mental health behaviors that are associated. Again, there's a lot of discussion, there is a lot of science, but it's all contradictory. But as far as I'm concerned, I went online, did a lot of looking up. The release of lead from the pipes or the solder joints and other things impairs children's development. Let's just put it bluntly. It can and often has. And there is science behind that from the EPA and our national government. I am concerned because what you're going to do, you're going to remove the service lines, but you're not re-outfitting the house. The lines in the house may well be the same lines that are outside, be it lead lines or other types of metals. And often solder, because solder was cheap and it was rust proof. We have been doing this for over 100 years, since the late 1800s. The issue has come up and up and up. There are some lawsuits that appear to be proceeding from looking at the internet about the use of fluoride, where it may be coming in contact with these pipes, releasing lead, called galvanic corrosion, and it affects children. It affects mostly, or where you would find it most, according to the Biden-Harris announcement, lead exposures disproportionately affects communities of color and low-income families. They're living in old houses with old pipes.
Let you finish yours.
I think it's a moral issue. I think there is a need to reconsider for our action by the council. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Pruitt.
Cheryl Pruitt, 125 2nd Street Northwest, Lava, Florida. I'm in District 1. Mr. Jefferson is my councilman.